Hey, it's Matt with the CFRC podcast project. I'm going to be basically walking through audio pre-production and production, essentially mastering audio for podcasts. This is going to take a few minutes, so bear with me. There's a couple of things you're going to need before you start, and these are going to be in the comments for this video with links. You need Audacity 2.3 or greater, so you need Audacity version 2.3 or higher. You're going to need a plugin called RMS Normalize. And the last thing is just reminding you that garbage in, garbage out is a great rule for any kind of recording. Try to minimize your room noise before you start. If you have multiple people and multiple microphones, make sure you take time to really balance them before you start talking. And if you're in a group conversation, it's not always possible, and sometimes you don't want to do this because of the energy and tone of the conversation, but try not to talk over each other. The more you can separate out voices, if someone moves away from their microphone or if someone's levels are a little low or something, it's easier to fix that when people aren't continually talking over each other or talking in tandem. The last note for this is do all your mastering before you add music to the podcast. What we're going to be doing is applying an effect that basically normalizes sound throughout the podcast, but since music changes the overall loudness of the section you're in, if you put the music in first, you're going to have a problem where the normalize effect is going to make everything sound really off because the relative loudness of voice plus music is going to be much quieter than the relative loudness of just voice. So I'm starting with basically a pure voice show, and I've picked a recent episode of Screening in Kingston, which is the CFRC movie show. We do this in conjunction with the Screening Room, which is an amazing show, amazing theater in downtown Kingston. You can see here I have a nice explicit file name, Screening in Kingston. It's going to be really easy for me to tell later on once I've uploaded this to the server what show this is and what date it was originally aired on, and that's just going to make it really easy for me to separate this from other files. We host a lot of podcasts, so the more explicit our file names are, the easier it is on all of the volunteers to manage this. So we're going to import this, and I've just downloaded this as is from the CFRC archive. The first thing we can see, the levels throughout are very, very quiet, and that's because the CFRC archives basically record audio at a fairly low level. And this is a bit by design. It's better to record things at a low level than too high a level because, as you'll see, we can always increase the amplitude of a low level show. But once you get past compression, once stuff gets recorded in a way that compresses the audio, you can't fix that. So we're going to take a look at this. Here's the whole audio file. You can see it's an hour long. Already I can point out there's sort of a gap here, and there's a gap here, so I can tell when some breaks are happening. These are things that we're either going to want to take out or maybe tighten up in the future. So let's take a look at this first thing. We're just going to select this command here, fit selection to width, lets me zoom in on that. So let me start this from the top.
I know it has something to do with the colors on the wall, but we're looking for numbers for the wall. No, see, the numbers here line up with each of these colors.
Okay.
Hold on, what if we...
Oh, this is an ad. This is an ad for Improbable Escapes. So stop that. Let's see what this chunk of audio is.
If you enjoy our summer show at City Park, then you will love Christmas in Kingston. Includes Santa's work.
Okay, that's another ad. Let's see what this is.
This is Glenn Close on CFRC 101.9 FM on Queen's University campus in Kingston.
Hi, Rick Mercer from Rick Mercer's Monday Report. You're listening to CFRC Radio in Kingston.
You're listening to CFRC 101.9 FM here in Kingston, and welcome to Screening in Kingston.
There we are. There's the beginning of the show. So we're going to trim all this stuff out first of all. Boop. All right, let's jump ahead to the end of the file, and let's see what's going on here.
Oh, see, the numbers here line up with each of these colors. Hold on.
Oh, sounds like ads for Improbable Escape again, so let's see what's happening just before that.
Here for you, Holy soup. Right in. Tell us what you thought about the show. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, thanks everyone, bye. Sounds like the end of a show to me, so let's take all this off. So now we've got pretty much just the show we want. We had that little bit of weirdness in the middle, so let's zoom in on that and see what's going on here.
And we're just going to dive into it because it needs no introduction.
I think probably just having some trouble playing a clip. Do 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 do.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, beloved by every single listener. Not a great plan.
Okay, I'm not sure why there's that gap there, but we can probably take it out. Boop. And
Here's our first
The Deadwood movie is in production, but HBO could probably still cancel it.
We got a double not a great plan there. That was an accident.
Mr. Stark does.
Okay, so I'm not sure what that was, but we're going to leave it in as part of the show. The nice thing about podcasting is it's a pretty loose format, so we can kind of live with minor flaws. So this is a very low recorded thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and just normalize it. Now that we've trimmed our extras out, effect, and normalize. I normalize it to 0.0 because, well, why not? There we are. All right, so you can see immediately, huge jump in how much signal there is. We can play a bit back and hear the relative difference in volume now.
Online securely through CFRC.ca. You can,
That sounds pretty good. We got this little nub at the beginning that's still very quiet. Oh, going bananas with a vacuum up there.
You are listening to CFRC 1.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to normalize this chunk again. So we've got a good beginning, we've got a good ending. They clearly say goodbye at the end and it cuts out, so I don't need to fade out in the middle of the song or anything. So I'm going to select the whole thing. The first thing I'm going to do is run an effect, equalization. I'm going to select down here, near the bottom, select curve, low roll off for speech, and I'm going to set it at somewhere around 5,000. So this is the first of 3 things we're going to be doing to finalize this podcast. So here's the first. Boop, and done. And we listen to it again.
A good one.
And then, yeah, I don't remember anything else. I know
Did you
watched
eat
the
your
others.
spinach dip?
I had spinach dip.
Okay, they're talking about spinach dip, always a good sign. So we're going to select all again, and now we're going to do, and this is why you had to earlier get the effect RMS Normalize. We're going to apply RMS Normalize to a value of -16. And okay. What this does, what's different between RMS Normalize and Normalize is Normalize will take the loudest part of your file and bring it up to whatever threshold you set. In our case, we set it to 0.0, but it amplifies everything else exactly the same. What RMS Normalize does is take a look at the big blue lines here, the dark blue, right? That's the waveform. And then in the middle, you've got this lighter blue section, and that's the root mean square loudness. So that is kind of an averaging, and you can see this is a lot smoother than the jaggedy lines up at the top. So we're basically saying take this chunk here, this light blue, the root mean squared loudness, and put it at -16, which is not very loud by audio standards, but what you have to understand is the adjustment of this is going to push all of these dark blue areas up and out. So we're going to make everything louder, and you are going to see some clipping here. And clipping's normally bad. Clipping's not optimal, but for our purposes and kind of in the world of podcasting, things are generally a little more compressed. So if this doesn't make everything sound absolutely terrible, we're just going to kind of live with this. It's a long effect, so I'm probably going to pause right now and we're just going to jump ahead to when it's done. And pow, RMS Normalize is finished, and you can see the amplitude of the waveform is huge now. It's much bigger. Let's take a quick listen to a random chunk just to see how it sounds. Let's pick something with a lot of compression just to make sure it's not terrible.
The only person that I'm apprehensive that I kind of find like super problematic that it hinders my experience is Woody Allen. I can't watch any Woody Allen movies just because.
So I think it sounds pretty good. I mean, obviously there's some compression there, but it doesn't sound terrible. The compression sounds fine. So what we've done is we've done a low roll-off equalization. We've RMS normalized, and now all we need to do is import our outro. So import audio. Going to click around and find it. There we go. Going to move it to the end. There we go. Going to pop it up to the top track. You don't have to do this. I just like it because it's tidier. I just, you know, it's my own little thing. And it's already mastered. So what you don't want to do is you do not want to bring this in before you run the equalization and the RMS normalize, because it'll affect how those work, and you don't need to affect how those work. And again, you do not need to join these clips. This is just something I do because I'm weird that way. And now let's just check the ending.
Tell us what you thought about the show. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, sounds pretty good. So last thing to do is export. Exporting takes a really long time. Now, if your show had theme music, If you have come in here with a recording that you've recorded in another studio of just people talking, and you've done your editing and you want to add music, you would be adding the music before you put our outro on at the end, but after you've done all these other steps. So if we jump back a few steps, undo join, undo track remove, undo time shift, undo time shift, undo import. This is the point where you'd be importing your theme music, putting it on another track, fading it in, having your entire conversation happen, and then fading out your music at the end. Then you would bring in the signature, the outro, to happen after all of that happens. But that's it. One of the neat things about Audacity is you can set macros. So you can actually, and this is advanced, we're not going to get into the details of this right now, but if you go to tools, there's a section here called macros. And I could create a macro, actually I already have, I could create an entire macro called CFRC Podcast. And then I can actually start making every single step of this. So I can start by saying select all. So this presumes that I've imported my clip. I select all. Then equalization and low roll-off for speech and 5,000-ish. Then RMS Normalize. So what I'm making is a macro that really applies after you've done all the trimming. Oh, RMS Normalize is not in the macro. Oh, there it is. Misalphabetized. So we're going to edit that and make sure it's set at -16. Good. Move that up. Going to import. This one's a bit tricky. Going to import my file name. And this is tricky because you have to go in here, shift right click. Again, this is really its own tutorial. I'm going much faster than I should, but I'm just showing you that you can do this. We're going to import that piece of audio. And then, this is where my, there we are. Then we align end to end. And then we're going to export. So you've got an entire sequence of things here, which once you have your audio trimmed and your basic normalization done, it'll run the equalization, it'll run the RMS Normalize, it'll even import, move to the end, and export the audio file. So it's literally one click through this macro. Once you've got your trimming and stuff done, it's one click to actually finishing the whole thing, which is pretty cool. All right, that's it. Thanks for spending almost 20 minutes with me. Hopefully this wasn't too dumb. If you have any questions, obviously you can contact us, podcast.cfrc.ca, especially if you're interested in podcasting or volunteering for the project. Hopefully this makes things a little easier, and we'll talk to you later.